Did you have relationships or early life experiences that inspired that interest in the news? Was someone supporting you along the way, or this is just an interest that evolved on its own?
I've always been a very big people person, and so any job where I know that I would get to communicate with people, the thing that I loved about the news is, it's people listening to me and they're reading my words or hearing me tell them the information. So that's what kind of got my interest in it. Other than my family supporting me, there was no real connection to get into the business, which makes it very difficult. In this business, it's often who you know. So once you get a job, those people and those connections can help you. I've never burned a bridge. All my former bosses, I would say, would rehire me back, which is wonderful. And they do. They help you through the rest of your career to find other positions. When I was working in Barrie, I was working on an FM afternoon drive show. So I was a co-host. It was the John and Lyndsey show. And a big, huge part of what's going on in radio now is social media. It's now not just what's going on the radio. You have a website. You're trying to get fans on Facebook and Twitter. And through this time, Charlie Sheen put out a call that he wanted an intern. And all you had to do to apply to be his intern was send a tweet. So it's 140 characters. And from there, 80,000 people did that. And so I made the first cut. And so from that first cut, then you had to kind of fill out a little questionnaire about why you would want to be his intern. And I made that cut as well. So each time the number is dwindling down a little bit. And then you had to make a video submission. And then I made it past that as well. And I ended up out of about 80,000 people being somewhere in the top 50. And I believe there was only about 3 people in Canada that made it to a certain part in the journey, I would say. And so I just got a lot of media attention from that. And I really used it to my advantage, is how I would say it. I mean, there was nothing I didn't do. Any little radio station that called me across the country, I did an interview with them. It didn't matter what time. I drove to Toronto several times from Barrie to do all the major papers here. I was on the major news networks, and then eventually CNN. So from all of that different media experience, I didn't end up getting the position with Charlie Sheen, but I did an interview with this radio station with More in the Morning, the morning show guy. And there's a job forum for people in radio called Milkman Unlimited. And I saw a posting, an opening for a producer here. So I sent the audio of my interview with John Moore, and that helped me get in the door here. And from there, convinced them that I have applicable experience. The job I'm doing now as a producer, I've never done before. I've always had kind of on-air news positions, so it's completely different, but applicable experience and, willing to work really hard and try something new, and here I am.
Did you see applying for the Charlie Sheen position as being risky? Did you feel you were taking a risk?
Huge. And in the end, I was, people kept asking me, do you really want to work for this guy? And I kept thinking about it. And at the time, he was going through that downward spiral where he was posting all those videos, and he seemed insane. He really did. He didn't seem like he was in his right mind. But I mean, it was still an opportunity for me. My name was out there, and it was definitely going to be a risky adventure if the opportunity came where I would have to decide to take the job. I would say I'm not sure that you want to be pegged as Charlie Sheen's intern for the rest of your life.
How did you know what to do?
Media experience, being in this business, I understand the game of it a little bit. And I guess this is the way I phrase it, as stories have a very short shelf life in this business. Even if it's a major story, a hurricane, for example, Hurricane Sandy, that was something that happened pretty recently, and we're not really talking about it anymore, but there's still people affected by that. So the shelf life on my stint with Charlie Sheen, it was going to run out. So you kind of have to make the most of it in that time, and that's what I knew was very important. As long as people were asking me to talk about it and following me along this journey, I was definitely going to go along for the ride, and it's just something that working in the media business, especially in news, you realize that there's only kind of a short time when this is going to be relevant, and you can't buy that kind of exposure to be on CNN. It's very rare. It's on my bucket list to have an opportunity to be there. So anything that I was asked to do, you have to do it.
Tell me about any important role models, mentors, champions, sponsors you've had in your life.
My dad would be my biggest role model. My dad was a milkman when he met my mom. And I mean, he recently just became a consultant as he's kind of winding down his career, but eventually he was the president of a major marketing and sales company. So I see hard work and I see how that can pay off. And he's really instilled those values in me. He's also a huge people person, very outgoing. I would remember when we were kids, we would go on bike rides and just how he would talk to strangers. And it's something I kind of have picked up in life, even in an elevator. You never know who you're going to meet. So being outgoing, it really taught me a great life lesson, and I've carried that with me forever.
Anyone else?
I mean, one of the people I would consider my mentor would have been my first boss, who gave me my very first job in radio. Always when I have decided on a job change, I go back to him, and he's there for me to talk about this, to see, is this a good time? Because I have changed jobs a lot, and often when you look at somebody's resume who has switched jobs, that can be a bit of a risk for someone new taking you on, and I do realize that. So all of my moves, I have to really look at them and think, is this the best move for me at the time? Some jobs I've only worked at for 8 months, some a little bit longer, but it's nice to have somebody who works in the business and understands what you're going through and just always have that connection where you can talk to them about those kind of things.